So what I'll say to myself is basically is to love myself enough to walk away, from abuse, to make the right choices.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy John David, and you are listening to Become Podcast. Welcome to episode number 15. And it's been a minute. We are celebrating Women's Month, and we're gonna have some women guests for the next few weeks. And what a way to start it by welcoming to the mic, no one else but Dawn Fish. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think we were doing some research of who do we get. We only have about 4 weeks, and we have to get 4 guests, and it was much more. But when I was mentioning him, and I remember it was another guest in the shop, and they were like, "Yes, get her, get her, get her." And on our way back, I was like on driving you till here, and I think just having that conversation in a short minute, guys, this episode is gonna be so much fun. Dawn, for those that don't know you, tell us a bit about you and then where you're from.
Well, I am Dawn Fish. I am a mother, a grandmother, a wife, a daughter, an activist for women's rights, and I'm a woman of God. I love Jesus, and I love serving people, and I have a passion to empower and to educate and to be part of a healing process for someone.
Now, and you also have some years behind you. I think you've been working with young people, with women, for probably more than the years in hours on earth. What made you start with this whole journey?
Wow. Well, just going back, if I look at where it all started for me in serving the community. I was still married. I was in my first marriage. I was in an abusive marriage. And these little kids used to come knock on my door from the Philippi farms. I lived in Westgate at the time, and they were hungry children. And I just started cooking meals for these kids, and every day more and more kids used to come and join. And then I used to collect clothes from the church, and I used to get donations, and I used to allow them to wash, and I used to, just have talks with them, and that is where my passion started growing for people and to help people. And serving those little kids is what kept me sane in my abusive marriage.
Wow.
And then further on, I started working more and more with children living on the street, feeding the homeless people. That time in the town centre in Mitchell's Plain.
Yes. Yeah.
And then from my work with the homeless and with children on the street, I came to hear about an organization that was going to be launched in 1995, and that was an organization towards specifically with abused women. And so I applied for it. Didn't know what was going to happen. I've just come through 12 years of abuse in my marriage and come through a divorce. And I just flew into the unknown, just applied, didn't know what was going to happen from there. And then I was invited to an interview and was accepted. It was one of 12 that came and had to go for a full year training. Over 50 women who I think was interviewed. So it was a true blessing and truly part of God's greater plan for my life. And so yes, I flew into the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen from there on. I was coming through a divorce, 3 young children at the age of 27. And I just had to trust God. I just heard the voice of God and just trust Him. And I took that leap of faith. It was a full year training course, Monday to Friday, full time. Didn't know how I was going to get my kids to school, how I was going to feed them, but God. And so I started working with abused women, educating, empowering, training, counseling, support groups. And that was the work that I was doing, in Mosaic at the time, the organization I worked for. And so that is where it really started for me.
I've done a bit of reading about it, and I'm just thinking like they're also like trying to prevent and reduce abuse and domestic, especially in the local community. One of the questions I would like to ask is that for the years that you've been there, I mean, you have about more than 20 years, would you say that abuse got more, or would you say that people became more aware about the abuse that was happening in this time that you've known it back then,
Yes.
and to where we are right now?
That's always a common question. People ask me, is the abuse on the rise or is it pausing on the rise? And so I think it's both. Because there is so much, back then when I was caught up in my piece of marriage, there wasn't much education going on around gender-based violence, around domestic violence and abuse. Now it's on, it's on television, it's on radio, it's everywhere around us. And so people obviously become conscious.
Yes.
If an abused woman switches on the TV, switches on the radio, and she hears, someone talking, it's like, wow, she can identify with it, and there's numbers being given, there's organizations, and she can reach out and she can seek help. And that's important thing. So I believe that it's both, reporting is on the rise. More and more women are reporting, more and more women are seeking help, but also there's also an increase in abuse. More and more, and people often ask why. Why is abuse on the increase? And that's a whole different avenue on its own. But I think it is both. More and more women are reporting, more and more women are less scared to report. It's always been a taboo topic. You don't talk about it outside of your home. You married, it's your bed, you made your bed, must lie in it,
that was
and swept under the carpet. Yes. And when mothers are telling their daughters, do you think your father never abused me? But yet I stayed,
Yes.
and all of that. So why do you want to leave?
Yes.
And we often find that mothers are the less supportive of their daughters who are experiencing abusive marriages.
Yeah. I think in you see families, and I've seen it personally, where it was very out on staying with a person and being very toxic and saying you just stay. Mama would say and stay.
Yeah.
And when you actually take your time and listen to you be like, yo, this was some toxic thing that you just accepted.
Yes.
And you had a voice where you could have said like, no, this is not for me.
Yeah.
For you to come home every night and not be appreciated or throw my food or whatever. And I think that was, and I mean, I'm living witness. This happened in the house where mother was saying father was abusive. And I was just like, I'm gonna get old and you're gonna see what I'm. And I think that one of that stories that I used to read was that way the two children, their father was a drunkard and abusive, and the one turned out to be like that and the other one didn't. And that to me is like, what would you say to our younger people that is listening right now, or to our females, because you are speaking especially to females, I think this is the issue that where females they literally think they have the power to change someone else. And then you see 12 years, 10 years down the line, you're like, you're still young. You are still. I genuinely think that woman. Do you have one of the cases? Because I know it's plenty. Do you have all the cases where you speak with someone and you just think, this is not a lost case, but it's gonna take a while for you to wake up. Do you have all that?
Oh, many cases like that. When a woman's been abused, she comes for counseling. But the reality is that women don't want to leave their marriages. They married this guy because they loved him. And when they said I do, they, wanted a lifelong marriage and relationship with this guy. And then few years, few weeks, few months into the marriage, abuse starts. And then it's like, unbelievable, how can this happen? I love this guy, he's really loved me now, and now he's abusing me. And she compromises herself all the time. Because if he beats her up because he doesn't like cabbage food and she made cabbage food, then she's going to stop making cabbage food. But next week he's going to have a problem because his pollution wasn't a wash and iron for Wednesday. And then she's going to compromise herself on that and she does something else again because she starts to think that she's the problem. And so she gives and she gives and she does and she sacrifices, but she's always finding something, because you must understand that abuse is about power and control. It's a power and control mechanism. There's always about one person in the relationship. Understanding that abuse is, anyone can be an abuser. So just understanding that, also keeping that in mind. And so therefore it is always about power and control. One person wants to exercise that power and that control to make sure that you understand and I'm the boss here. I'm the boss here, and you will listen to me, and you want to fight that into this. And so as a marriage obviously continues and the abuse continues, more and more she loses her own self-worth, confidence, who she was. I had a client once who, after that 5 sessions, I asked her, can you bring me a picture of your wedding, the day you got married? Bring me a photo. And then we looked at the way she was looking now, 9 years into the marriage, and her wedding pic. And you could see that she looked like 20 years older.
Wow.
Than what she looked on that wedding pic, 30 years older even. She was drawn, she had, her face, she wasn't even physically caring for herself anymore. And so that is what happens. So we don't condone just leave your marriage, but there is help available. We don't condone divorce. And she doesn't want to actually leave. She wants the abuse to stop. And so what does she do to try and stop the abuse? She gives all this actual control, she makes excuses, she justifies the behavior, all of that, and so before she knows what's happening, she's completely lost herself in who she actually is. Who she is, and it impacts on the children. Domestic violence is child abuse. And so the child, remember, is linked emotionally to the mother, because the mother is the nurturer and the carer. So she's hurting, the child is hurting. If she has fear, the child has fear. If she is losing the self in the process, the child is losing itself in the process. And so it definitely impacts on the child as well.
Yeah. I will say this, we can see physical abuse.
Yes.
And there was times we could hide it, and the woman would come. I've worked with some colleagues that was in a abusive relationship, and they would hide it. And when you work with them, like, this car doesn't look normal.
Yeah.
And you can hide it, but I think what you can't hide is the emotional and mental, and that damages that. People be like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Everybody can ask them right now, I'm fine. What would you tell a young girl that is coming from not physically being abused, but mostly mentally, psychologically being abused? What would you say? How do you become mentally independent, or how do you become mentally stronger as a female in the society? Like, I came through a 2 years, 3 years, 5 years worth of crap, and I've made up today from Monday onwards. What would you say the kick will be to become mentally independent, of getting yourself there? Where do you start? Is it by combing your hair? What would you say to this young lady is the key to become mentally independent? Not needing the affirmation of her husband, or saying like, oh, you're beautiful, or do we just become mentally strong and actually just start to change?
That's quite difficult to say, because it varies really from one individual to another, because all our emotional and mental makeup, the psyche is completely different from one to the other. And so some of us are emotionally stronger than others, and some of us tend to, give into stress, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, that kind of thing, because we don't talk about it while it's happening. And so therefore we tend to then just get into the depression, etc. However, coming back to your question, is that the sooner that person can seek help, someone she can trust, someone she can rely on, someone who will listen, someone who will believe her, someone who won't judge her and just be quick to give advice, the sooner that happens, the better. And so there is help available. I think there are organizations that can help. There is, in the church, counselors in the church, etc. So we are not alone. There is help available.
You are saying that about the church. We and I will say this, all the way. A lot of times you can preach, laying on hands and it's all good. But we come back to a abusive husband. We come back to your child being on drugs. You come back to your child thinking and saying, rather than my drug money tonight is going to be a gram or. And she's a powerful woman of God, but she goes home to the stress. What, like you say, there is counsel and is but what can the church contribute to these people? Because it's really well to say, like, the Lord says, trust and believe. And but you go home and you're like, I can't trust.
Same situation.
I can't trust. Like, what do you, and this is my personal, I do think that churches should preach more realistic things. Speaking about the abuse, of telling them, you know what, this is not right.
Yeah.
You come and you want to be like, you're preaching about in the house, you're mentally abusing your wife. And I think we should start preaching more of that than to just be like, God bless you, let's pray for the family, but you actually know and throwing a blind eye to these issues. Where can the church then help our young people, our ladies? What would you say can the church do to extend the hand to our females?
I hear you and I'm completely with you on that. The important thing is that the church might be able to acknowledge that there is a problem outside or behind the church doors, and it exists and it's real, and it's impacting the person sitting in your church, in your congregation, that's sitting under your word, and that person is experiencing that. So how do you assist and support? And so there's obviously to open up the altar, a platform to acknowledging these issues, like for example during Women's Month.
Yes.
Get your female speakers, get some testimonies, people to talk so that people can know this is a real stuff, what's happening out there. And then to say and to get your people know that this is where you can go for help. Like in my church, for example, people know in my church I've been given the platform in church to speak, about the work I'm doing, and also to speak around domestic violence, etc., gender-based violence. And people, have come to me. I've done counseling, with women. I've walked the path with them. Do you need a protection order? Do you need a maintenance? Do you need, do you want to go through a divorce? Do you need, the practicalities of the situation. So it's find a balance, striking that balance between the spiritual and the practical. Because spiritual support is just as important as is the practical support. And so one needs to bring the two together, find a balance, so that she has support all around.
I think I would like to keep it really close to home, and I think woman has the ability to then go through this process, being abused, which she haven't started. I just didn't like. Carry shoot. I'm looking for my white t-shirt and I'm toxic, and now I'm telling you better do this. And now you fed up, you go through divorce. The aftermath is that women then tend to take this like, it's all my fault. Whether the man goes down in the gutters, she takes it, it's all my fault. And whether she go for the divorce, and now she has the guilt trip of like, I've been doing this, I've been doing wrong, and the guy goes on, he lives his life. But what do you say to this lady that gone through a divorce, feel the guilt of people judging her, and still have to deal with the hurt or the lost years or picking herself up? I think it's and talking about it now, it should be so hectic just to pick yourself up, just to not even get yourself to a better place, but just to get yourself as a normal human being. What would your encouragement be to this woman that has been divorced, still have the memories, still love the person, and still have to pick himself up from this?
It's a process, right? So I always say to people who come for counseling, don't think you're going to walk in here and it's a quick fix. It's a process. And so, and the quicker we tackle and take on, the practical means of moving forward. I'm taking the bull by the horns and saying today is the day, and now I need to pull myself together and I need to get my children sorted and all of that. So it's about moving from that victim mode, to victim mode, to survive, or because all the time she's been in that marriage, in that relationship that was abused, she has been surviving, and now she needs to, get to another level beyond just surviving. And obviously, as a counselor, you facilitate in the process, but the work belongs to her.
Yeah.
And so she needs to make the decisions and the choices, and she needs to make work with that.
Yes.
And so whether it is getting a job, seeking work, to become financially independent, whether it is tackling, the son's problems and the daughter's problems, whether it is going for maintenance, all of those kind of stuff, it's a process. And I've also worked with women in a women's shelter. And so, where I've led sort of, empowering sessions with them, like a support group, but empowering them. So, and I would say to them, so you are here now in the shelter, but you're not going to be here forever. So we need to now plan ahead. And so I used to example, so you were on a bus out of your home, your marriage, where you were. The bus dropped you off here now, so now you're here. But the bus is not come past again, you have to get on that bus. You need to move forward to your next destination. Because this is not your permanent place where you are right now. And so let's look at how you're going to move on from here. So, and because you're so broken down emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's impacted your physical health as well. Because with emotional and mental abuse, it impacts your body, your physical health. And so now you've got to deal with all of those kind of stuff. And so now they can't even think clearly, for themselves, like I get for myself, as a survivor, an overcomer, of domestic violence. And it's not an easy task to get your mind clear. And so you need support, you need assistance, you need guidance. You need someone to say, okay, look, this is the situation, let's look at it, let's prioritize. What can you do now? What's possible now? And what can you tackle and how do you do that? And that is, how she needs it. It's impossible to do it alone. I know it's impossible to do it alone. But, by the grace of God, and God brings people on your journey, or places people on your journey that can assist you and support you, and you can get there. But you cannot, if you're going to stay where you are at, you're going to sink into depression, and we just lose yourself. And many of us think that they can't move on, but nothing without their partners or their husbands. People really didn't say this, you will be nothing without me. I took you from your mother's home when you had nothing, and I gave you this, and I did that for you, and you worth nothing, you cannot do for yourself. And they start to believe that. It's like being brainwashed into believing that you can do nothing without him, and you are nothing without him. And then you will be
I see. I told you earlier, I can record for days. I've been talking with you now, and I do think in the future we're gonna have you. And I would also want to have the company work nice hand in hand with you, so that when people do approach our platform and say we can seek help, we can connect them to that, and that's what we always do at the end of our podcast. But before we end the podcast, I told you that one of the questions will be that what is the one thing that you will tell the young people when maybe at the darkest time of their life, just the day before you make change? What will your encouragement be, or what will your word be of correction to her right now? If you could have a conversation with a younger version of you, what would it be?
Gosh, I would probably say to myself that that I need to love myself enough to make the right choice or the right decision. I'm a strong believer in that I don't have any regrets. The fact that I was a teenage mom, a teenage bride, the fact that I was abused for 12 years in my marriage and failed in the first and the second marriage, because of, certain reasons, of what I call a father void syndrome. So what I would say to myself is to love myself enough to walk away, from abuse, to make the right choices. Even though I don't believe in the regrets. You know, I believe that everything happens for a purpose. The journey is meant to be. And whoever comes onto our journey is either there to break us or bless us. You know, or teach us. And so yeah, so basically just love yourself.
Wow.
Self-love, self-honor, self-respect. Too many of us as women, you know, we want to, we expect from a man to love us, to respect us, to honor us. And when they don't, then we also lose ourselves in the process. So, especially to our young girls, you know, it's not about walking around practically naked to seek attention and to be seen and to be accepted and to be loved and to be honored, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It starts with you. So you look at yourself in the mirror and say, girl, I love you, I respect you, I honor you.
So jy het gebore met
Dis
dit.
gebore.
We can this you know, we have females listening.
Yes.
A lot of females, and everybody goes through, you know, different type of abuse. But for the one girl that is at the point of need that she needs to get hold of or wants to get hold of you, we can get hold of you and how?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Dawnfish. And then also my organization I started February 2020. Arise Pain to Power. It's also on Facebook. And then I have a number that's available. Can I give a number?
We can give it. It's just us first up to you.
Okay, yeah, my number's open, you know, because I do throughout lockdown I've been doing online counseling and that kind of thing. So it's an open number, you know, people can just connect with me. So my number on WhatsApp is 071 672 7044.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dawnfish. We had a blast of the time. I enjoyed it. Please do get help, and you know, guys, let's stop the gender-based violence, and women, please love yourself, and we are out of here.